Welcome to the Nordic Mythology podcast. I'm Daniel Farrand, owner of the company Horns of Odin, and today I'm joined by Lars, Bill, and Dan Cato Fagernes. I think that's right.
Excellent. Yes.
I've been practicing it. And we're going to talk about a very fascinating voyage that you two are a part of taking a Viking ship all the way from Norway to Istanbul. Am I correct?
That's right. Absolutely.
Which
we started this planning for quite many years ago, because the ship we're going to sail was built back and launched back in 2018, and from the absolute beginning of that, the build of that Viking ship and the reconstruction, there's always been a dream of bringing this ship on these routes around Europe and eventually go to Miklagard, today's Istanbul. So what we're doing now has actually been planned for many times, and we have actually tried a few times, but due to pandemic and other issues, it has been quite hard. But now we're ready. So we are planning now and to go from Tønsberg in Norway, the oldest city of Norway, to Miklagard, Istanbul, on a 16-week voyage with just the volunteer people who likes to travel and promote the Viking heritage from Norway on the route.
I mean, my first question has to be, where do I sign up to volunteer to come along on this ship? Forget the podcast. I've just completely forgotten about that now. I'm just like, how can I get on this ship?
You can get on this ship next year. And you're very welcome. But the fact is that we have actually managed to fill up more or less the entire route for this year.
Oh, wow.
Isn't that right, Dan Cato? We are more or less at that.
Yes, that's correct. We have 65 different participants, and totally, I think it was around 85 spots available. And we have only 1 or 2 spots open with waiting lists. So, complete crew.
So for your question, you can sign up for next year, because this voyage will not end in Miklagard in Istanbul. It's just a stop on the route for the winter, and we'll continue the year after in 2024 in the Mediterranean, and 2025 going somehow backwards, back against towards Norway, but maybe we'll do a detour to Ireland, Scotland. We'll see.
Oh, you can drop me off.
You can go along with us in 2024. We'll drop you off in 25. Yeah.
It sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Okay. There's so many avenues I want to explore, but I'm going to try and keep it as coherent as I can. Let's go right back to the start. What's the inception point of this? Is it were you two involved in the actual building of the ship itself?
I was, to some extent. Dan Cato, I don't remember. You probably quite early.
Yeah, I became a member around 2018, just before the launching of the ship. So I only participated in a few sort of knifing, edging, made a few things of carpentry on board, and then it was launched.
And I have been part of this since 2010, because we built a Viking ship before this one. We built an Oseberg replica, exactly like the Vikings did back in 2010, 2012, launched in 2012. And we've been sailing that for a few years. And then we started to build the ship with the Saga Farman that we're going to Istanbul with a few years later, and launched it in 2018. So I've been for quite some years now, and also I'm a board member in the foundation who actually build and owns these ships. So a little more than media interested in Viking ships, I can say. Yeah.
So why couldn't you use the Oseberg one for this voyage?
Yeah, the Oseberg, it's a ship of very much extravagance. It's all these carvings. It's a very beautiful ship. It was probably used to row around the coastline of Norway, and it was probably a woman who owned the ship and used it for some kind of rituals or, promoting the religion of the time, stuff like that. Might be, we don't know for sure. But what we know for sure is that the ship is a very good sailing ship, but it's not made for ocean crossing. It goes, in Scandinavia, but you won't go to Iceland or England in a ship like that. It's not made for it. While the Saga Farman, that is a reproduction of the Kloster ship found, it was a Knarr that would be a trading ship that was built to sail around Europe for trade. So it's very different hull symmetrics and stuff like that. So it works differently in water and copes with the waves and stuff like that better than the Oseberg ship. So when we started to build that ship in 2014, I guess, a clever guy, a historian in our group, he came up with the idea, say, okay, this is a trade ship. It has been traveling around. The original one had been traveling around in Europe, probably, and probably at that time, some of them went to Miklagard. Why don't we sail our ship to Miklagard, just to copy not just the ship, but also the voyages that ship did back in 998 or close to 1,000 years ago, or something like that. So we thought that, okay, why not? And we planned it the first time around. We planned to go north of Norway, around the Kola Peninsula and into Russia and down through Russia and Ukraine to the Black Sea. But
I feel like you're just making it harder for yourself.
Yeah, and we found out perhaps a little late that we were too ambitious about that to travel because it's first of all, it's pretty dangerous to go around the north part of Norway in a Viking ship with the 1,200 years old technology. And also when you get to the Russian part of that area, you won't get any. There's no rescue people. There's no sea rescue like we got all the way along the coast. So if anything happens, we can't cope with it. So, and we're just volunteers, and not all of us have been sailing for many years. We're not Vikings all the way through to the bone. So at some point we decided that is not realistic. We need to find a path to go to Istanbul in different route. And today, of course, due to the facts of the war in Ukraine, it's not possible to go that way. So,
of course. Okay, I want to stick with. Let's try and stick with the building, then maybe the crew, and then the voyage itself.
The building, I can tell you what we do. This foundation that we're part of, it's actually a foundation who's just a few people trying to collect money from different, businesses or whatever it could be to help us build these ships. And then we have volunteer groups connected to this foundation who do the sailing and the maintenance of these ships that we're building. So it's like a family of the foundation and all sorts of groups, of course. We also do have groups within textile reproduction and reenactment and stuff like that. So all sorts of activities connected to the Viking heritage is under the umbrella of this foundation. So the foundation started to build the Oseberg ship back in launched in 2012, as I said, and we built a small medieval vessel in between, and then we started on the the Farman ship with Kloster, and we always try to build as close to the original as possible with the same tools and the same materials and same processes. So our boat builders, they are trained to use axe as a tool. They're trained to use old-fashioned tools, not modern, saws and stuff like that. The Vikings didn't have saws that they could use to cut and make planks. So that used to have they need to have the axes to do that.
So you do try to keep it as traditional as possible in that sense.
Yeah, it's a part of the vision of the foundation to show people live on the edge of Tønsberg down to the canal. That's a building site where we build Viking ships as original as possible, so people can see. They can see how we use the axes. They can get the smell of the fresh wood and the tar, and sweaty men working hard, all that sort of thing, to give people a realistic impression of how was it in the Viking Age, how is the processes, and they can actually participate. They can, and we have people from all over the world coming, passing by, saying, "Okay, I would like to do this for a few days. Can I help you out?" And we'll teach them, and they'll help as good as they can. And then in that way, we are promoting, the heritage of building Viking ships, and people get, some kind of a small ownership to the ship. So there's a lot of owners to our ships because so many people have participated building them. So it's actually quite amazing. It is.
Yeah, and the activity on this Viking shipyard in Tønsberg is also an important part for recruiting new members to the boat guild. And my role is as leader of the board of the boat guild. And our purpose is to train people to be able to sail this Viking ship in a safe way. And this weekend and also today, I've been on this shipyard because all the volunteers is then helping to prepare the ship for this new season. And for me now, when I drink my coffee, it doesn't smell coffee. It actually smells tar because we've been preparing the ship for this year's journey. Yeah. Lars, please continue.
Yeah, it's absolutely the same here. I'm sitting in the smell of tar. I'm wearing my working clothes. I have been on the boat yard for 10 hours today, prepping the ship, and we're going back tomorrow. This is really hectic now. But let's go back to the shipbuilding. So we do collaborate with some Danish ship reconstructors who have specialized in reconstructing findings from the Viking Age, like the grave findings from the Oseberg and the Gokstad, and also in Denmark they found quite a lot of ships that was used as a barrier in one of the fjords down there, and they have since the 60s they have tried to recreate as realistic as possible these ships, and that knowledge we utilize in Norway. So we asked them to help us do the reconstruction work, the drawings and the calculations and it's trying and testing, small scale models. And when they're ready and say, okay, this is as close as we can get, we have seen all the material from the grave or from the findings somewhere, and we have scanned and we have done all sorts of modern stuff. This is what we think it looked like, and this is how the whole shape would have been. Then the foundation in Norway and Tønsberg then try to raise all the money and use our boat builders to build those ships. And we are now on our third ship. That will be the Gokstad ship. We stretched the keel last year, and we are 4 or 5 rounds of boards coming around now. There was still quite a lot to do. We still need maybe 2-3 years before it's done.
Okay.
But we're not working fast because the process of building is what's important here, not the ship itself, because we want to show people how it's done. And so we build a little slow, you can say.
Well, that was going to be my question of how long it would take to build something like this, because I mean, you guys are going to have a good idea as anybody as to how difficult these things are actually to make.
We have got that question quite often. And,
I'm sure, yeah.
Yeah, but it's a good question because it's not just about the manpower and the techniques and the processes. It's more like, when do you need a ship, right? And when is it fitting to build a ship? And my personal thoughts, and it's only my personal thoughts, and can't blame anyone else. I believe that the Vikings built the ships in the winter.
Okay.
Because it makes sense to chop down the trees when the leaves are off, and it's easier to find the trees in the forest when the leaves off the trees, because you can see the shapes and all those things. And also in the wintertime, you didn't do farming because it's, you can't do farming in the wintertime. The Vikings were farmers mostly.
Yeah.
So in the wintertime, they had time to do stuff like that, building houses, building boats and ships and stuff like that. And they built with fresh trees or fresh wood, green wood, that's what we will call it.
Mm-hmm.
So taking it down, chop it up and make, the bigger parts in the forest and bring it out, and then do the final stuff and assembly close to water somewhere. That would be a reasonably good way to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And they were skilled. They were absolute professionals building the boats. We know that because they had more or less like a serial production of ships. In Denmark, they have found the stamps in pairs.
Oh, okay.
So they made 2 and 2 and said, okay, when I'm going to make it a 20-footer or a 35-footer, whatever, this is stamped for that. And I put them down here and to keep them wet and dry. So they're wet for future use. So they had some kind of processes going. And ships were the most efficient way of traveling in the Viking Age. There were no roads, right?
Yeah.
And so it's much faster to travel on water than traveling over land. So boats were, a common stuff that you built and used and reused and, threw it away and built a new one and so on. So they were professionals building boats for sure. And also at a later stage, they did have slaves. So to build many boats very fast, they could get the slaves to do, the tough work in the forest, and they could do the nice stuff at the boatyard.
The real skilled work.
Yeah, exactly. So my belief is that they could build a ship in the wintertime and make it ready for launch. But and it's very, very important to remember that the ship itself was easy peasy. They could build as many as they would. They had the forest, they had the skills, but the sail, they need to deal with the wives to get the sail done. And it's actually, if you read in these old documents and sagas and stuff like that, you didn't measure the richness of a person by the number of boats or ships, but by the number of sails he possessed. Okay. Because the sail itself was probably more expensive than the boat or the ship. Because
I feel like I've heard this before. I think it was at there's a ship in Iceland by the airport. Is there a little ship museum there? I think it's a modern. It's like a modern day museum type thing. I'm sure it's next to the airport in Iceland. And they have like it's only quite a small ship. It's nowhere near as big as the Oseberg. And they have like a little bit about. And I'm sure they mentioned about how the prices of sails and how it was such an important thing to have.
Also, it's one of the things that underpins the thought we got about the Vikings having some kind of equality between genders, because to be able to sail to England and do some stealing and robbing or trading, they actually need to get their wives on board the thought, because they had to invest a lot of time and a lot of textile to make these sails make it possible to go to England and back. Okay. So there was some kind of balance in between the genders at that time. We know that for sure. There's got quite a lot of rules defining that gender equality was quite common at the time. But that is one of the examples of they had to work together to make it to make a fortune, so to say.
Well, yeah. I mean, anybody who's watched, I don't know, like a TV show on Vikings, let's say Vikings, and you have Ragnar and he goes and asks Floki for a ship. Floki can make a fucking ship in about 2 days. He's just there. He just makes it on his own. Yeah,
it's probably not entirely right way to tell the story. As we have been building these ships, and even though we are on the Oseberg, we are at some point we were perhaps 10, 15 boat builders, different kinds, and blacksmith, and all sorts of skills needed. It's still quite a lot of thousands of hours that goes into that, even though that we know that the Vikings were much more skilled and much faster, doing stuff much more efficient. Still, it's quite a lot of hours that has to go into building a ship. And on the other hand, you need to make sure that it actually works when you sail it. So you need to put all your experiences from sailing ships into the build. The whole shape and how it should take the water, and how should the buoyancy of the ship when it's leaning, when the wind's too hard, and all that sort of things, because it's also said, and there's also our imagination that those who built the ship was actually also those who sailed them. And it was not like you had boat builders at home and somebody else was sailing, because people tend to do stuff together. They were growing the land together, they were hunting together, they were creating goods for trade together, and they brought it on the ship. Maybe some personal, but they had worked together to make it happen. And they went across to England or wherever and did some trading together and came back, and they did it with the ship they built together. So there was some kind of society event to do these things. There have to be a common agreement in the society. We will build a ship, we'll make the sail, we will get the stuff to sell, or the weapons we need to use to get what we need when we get there. And then this went off and came back. That was it, at least in the beginning. Later on in the Viking Age, they probably went, kings and other people who was in charge, they got boats builded and they staffed them with people and went to do stuff. But that's a different story. Of course.
Okay, I have one more question, and then I'm going to come to you, Dan, because I want to know about the whole crewing of a ship, because I want to know how you choose who gets to go on these beautiful things. But one thing that's always, I guess, crossed my mind is if I know a king wanted to invade England and he wanted 50 ships, would he build 50 ships, do you think, or would it be he'd build maybe a handful and try and amass ships from elsewhere? Because I feel like 50 ships is a lot to try and build in one go, maybe, or a fleet in one go.
There was a system in Norway at the time when Norway and Denmark and Sweden, for that matter, was more like organized society, with kings and structure. There was a system that you were told by the king or master in the area to actually build and man the ships. So there was people, sailing around and saying, next spring, you will provide a ship and the crew for it, because your king need to go on some kind of battle stuff.
Okay.
So it was regulated by rules, how this should work, how much the king could ask for from a society, depending on the size of the society, or the Kaupang, the area where they had their trading area. So there were rules for this. So he couldn't just go and say, okay, you build me 3 ships and then I'll go. It was put out to a lot of minor villages or societies to provide for the king according to the size of the society. So that was well regulated at the time.
That's Hollywood doing it again. See, they make it look like they just decide overnight they want to go to war, and they've got all the ships and the armies ready in a week.
No, it takes planning, and as I said, I think they could build the ships during the winter. So and yet it makes sense, because you don't want to sail when it's winter, because the ice and the weather and stuff like that. So you probably want to be ready to go as soon as the season starts. What also makes it reasonable to think that they were building for that season to start. So I think the probably would be a half-year delivery time for the fleet for the king.
Okay,
But it's just my thoughts around the topic.
Okay, Dan, how do we crew one of these? How do you choose who gets to go in it? Because I guess it can't just be, a podcaster who's like, I want to come on the ship. Please let me come on it. Because I imagine that they have to have some skills to offer.
Yeah, and of course, as you probably know, when you go to sea, there is something called risk, and you need to take care of security. I guess that a lot of Viking ships went down in storms, and also probably because of lack of knowledge. But we, in the modern world, we have insurance company, we have legal complications. So if we don't comply to certain rules, we will have an issue.
I didn't even think about that. How do you even get insurance on a ship like that?
Don't get us started.
It's actually pretty hard. It's actually pretty hard to get insurance on a Viking ship. But it's not standard at all. We have been calling around, for all insurance companies to get them to make the paperwork we need. It's quite hard. We do have insurance on our ship, but it's not easy and it's not cheap. I can tell.
Oh no, I bet it's not. So go on, Dan. Sorry.
Yeah. So when we thinking about manning this Viking ship with a complete crew able to sail the ship safely, you can't just start from nothing. So, but luckily, Lars do have some contacts, and back in 2012, when they started on the Oseberg ship, they had contacts with the Roskilde Viking Ship Museum in Denmark, and they sort of lended a few captains from that society. So we sort of tried to train them from crawling to walking, and after quite a few years, the association in Tønsberg was able to sail ships on their own. But the captains need to have ordinary certifications like Yachtmaster 3, and there is some different certification demands in Norway. So you need to have some years of sailing experience on ordinary boats or sail ships, and you need to have special training for coast shipper, we call it in Norwegian, and to make sure that not any guy knowing how to drive a cabin cruiser goes on board this ship and probably wrecks it. Then
I was going to say, how many of those skills cross over?
I would say that maybe you got 50-60% or something, because in motorized leisure crafts, they are quite maneuverable. And if you move over to sail ships like with the Bermuda rig, these sails are quite flexible and you can adjust them quite a lot to maneuver a sailboat. But with the Viking ships, you have this boom, rå, as we call it in our language. It's put 90 degrees on the mast, 90 degrees on the ship, and you can move it only a limited way to adjust the course of the ship. So if you don't get trained in this sort of sailing, you very quick will get into a difficult situation due to lack of maneuverability. So planning the sailing is very important. So the first part, manning the ship, is to have a skilled captain, but this is not a one-man show. Absolutely not.
Okay. So did you say 65, 85 people? 85 people are on it. Are they all on it at one time, or are you changing?
No, we need, according to our decisions, we need 8 people when we're going by engine to make sure that we at all times have at least 4 capable people to handle the different tasks. And
does it have an engine in it as well?
Yes, I think Lars can come back to that later.
Okay, yeah.
And when we are sailing, we need 12 people, we think, because there is no electrical winches on board, and you need to have one up front to look out for obstacles, because when you are standing in the back on the bridge on the ship, you can't see through the big bow in front of the ship.
Okay.
So, and
12 people doesn't seem like a lot.
Yeah, but it's 20 meters long and 5.4 meters wide, so it's enough space.
It sounds like a big ship, and 12 people just sounds like I'd want more people there.
But as mentioned, with the captain, training is important to man all the roles and positions on board. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if I do get to join you next year, then we better make it 13 people, 12 trained people, and then I'll just do my best.
Yeah.
Actually, this ship was probably sailed with less people back in the Viking Age. It is possible for 8 men. It was set up so 8 men could row it, not for rowing to go from A to B, but to maneuver in the harbors or whatever. So there might have been 8 or 9 people on board originally. And at that time, because it's a trade ship, they wanted to have as much goods on board as possible and as little people as possible. Okay. So they didn't have a winch on board, and they did, all that things to help them. Technology from the Viking Age to help them to be fewer on board, to get more goods on board, so they could get even wealthier together. So when we're sailing 12 people, we're probably a little bit too many compared to the Viking Age, but we are not Vikings in that matter. We're not as strong, or endurance is not the same. So
see, this is the thing where you get so many misconceptions from TV shows, because that's where we see these things, and these ships are always piled full with people.
You're absolutely right. But what you're seeing on the TV shows is very, very often just warships.
Okay.
And they are often piled with people, of course, because it's all about getting people from A to B to slaughter somebody. Mm-hmm. So filling up a warship it makes sense. And fill it up even more when they get back with slaves and stuff they stolen and stuff like that.
So would they take a spare ship for the booty and the slaves?
Yeah, maybe. We don't know. Actually, we don't know. But, as you come up with ideas saying, okay, if we are lucky, we might need an extra ship to get it all back. And maybe we should bring a ship that can actually carry a lot. Mm-hmm. But, the problem with the trade ship, they're not that fast, that they are heavy. So it depends on the situation. Okay. But yes, what you see in the TV shows is more or less warships. It's very seldom you will see a trade ship in a TV show. It's not that spectacular.
no, I don't suppose it is.
Yeah.
So how much could one of these hold if they're going for trading? And
they can hold a lot. We have a sister ship in Denmark called Ottar. It's 5 meters shorter, 7 meters shorter than us, but it still have over 26 ton of ballast. And ballast is just a compensation for not having goods on board. So that ship could at least have 26 ton of goods. That would be horses, stuff to sell or whatever. And our ship, we have about 10 tons of ballast and all the gear, and we could probably have 10 ton more if we want to. If we want to sail really heavy, we could do that. So they're capable ships, absolutely. They could bring a lot of goods from A to B, and they did.
Wow. Yeah, I didn't. So does most of that stuff go underneath the deck? I've never been on a ship like this, so I'm a complete novice when it comes to how these things work. So I assume everything goes under deck, like you see it there.
No, there's more or less no deck. That of course there's a deck, but there's no room under the deck. What they did for the Knar or the trade ships like ours is that they built a low part in the middle around the mast to be the area for cargo, right?
Oh, okay.
And they brought the flooring all the way down, as far down as they could, to get room for as much cargo as possible. And then they had a little higher deck, front and back, and underneath there they could have, you know, personal stuff and you know, all sorts of things. But the cargo went in the middle because these ships were built to have all the weight in the middle to still be maneuverable under sailing. So when you see our ship, you'll see that the deck is leveled very low in the middle and higher at the ends.
Again,
while a warship is more like flat all the way because they're just bringing people, more or less.
See, I was just thinking of all the pirate ships that I've seen that have like that little grate where they keep all the stuff underneath.
Yeah, but these ships are much smaller, you know, and we only have we don't have any, you know, levels down in the ship. You know, when you open the planks on the deck, probably what you'll see is ballast stones, like the standard gray stones, round gray stones, to keep the ship down, and that's it. There's not much more room. So
where do you sleep?
On the deck.
But that must be wet and cold.
Yeah, but you know, we have what called a boom tent. So we stretch canvas over the boom when we're not sailing, and we can lay under that like a tent, keep the weather away, and we sleep on the deck. It's not a problem, actually. You get used to it after a few weeks.
Get a lot of fresh air, you know.
Absolutely. But on our ship, we have actually built a small cabin in the middle, so we have somewhere to go to seek shelter from wind and weather. So when we're sailing like 24/7, we can have a few people sleeping in a dry environment to be fresh to take over when it's their turn. We don't know if the Vikings did have that kind of arrangement. It's likely that the chieftain or at least had some kind of tent or somewhere to go. But we have built our cabin or our tent in the middle of a ship where there would have been cargo instead. And we make a tent instead for us to be in. Make a little comfortable. At least you get out of the wind and the weather. But you know, that's the only comfort we got on board. For the time we don't even have a toilet. We have a bucket. So it's quite simple what we're doing. We are, you know, this is simple stuff. This is back to the basics.
I mean, yeah, it's how it would have been, I guess. I mean, would they have even had a bucket, or would it have just been over the side?
Yeah, over the side, absolutely. But you know, in these days, it's way too dangerous. People tend to fall overboard, and you cannot allow that kind of behavior. You know, it's also
that would be me. I'd be the person who was taking a shit and then fell overboard. 100%, that would be me.
Yeah. I have actually sailed in Denmark with some of those who's been sailing since the 80s, and they are, you know, they just sit on the side and do.
The old school.
No, you get used to it. But at least we have a bucket, so we can open a little you know, hatch, and you can sit on a bucket more or less, but you still have half your body above deck. So there's not room enough down there. So we have a practicality for that, because you need to let people know when the loo is taken.
Okay, so by just being visible.
Yeah, but we have actually our first aid gear. It's a very orange bag, and we put it in the same room. So when you need to go on the loo, you can take that bag and put it on deck, and everybody on board can say, "Okay, the bag is out, so the loo is taken." So it's very simple.
It is. I mean, it is very simple. Yeah. I feel like you're using a very important piece of equipment as a signal for when the toilet is in use.
Yeah, but you know, the fun stuff is that everybody knows where it is.
Okay, yeah, that's true.
Right, and that's safe, isn't it? Knowing where the safety gear is located. So it makes sense somehow.
Yeah, I guess it does.
Yeah.
Okay. So how long is the voyage from Norway to Istanbul going to take?
Today or in the Viking Age?
Both.
Both.
Because you
Well,
said, are you sailing 24/7 and just taking shifts?
yeah, we can do it, but we won't do it on this voyage. Maybe when we're sailing open sea,
Okay.
because we think it's a little fun actually to do 24/7 sailing, to get into the rhythm of sailing and long stretches. Is actually quite it's quite all right.
Mhm.
But when you get into Europe and we're doing the channels, the locks are not open at night, so we'll have to stop anyway. So we'll do day stretches. In the Viking Age, they had to go a different route than what we're doing, because we are using a channel between the Rhine and Donau that was not available in the Viking Age. It's a modern channel.
Okay.
So the Vikings had to pull their ships over land if they want to go that way. And it's pretty long stretch, so I don't think they did that. So they maybe sailed around, or they went the original route that we know they used around, through Russia and Ukraine down to the Black Sea. Or they could go the other way around via England and Gibraltar and the Mediterranean.
That's a long way.
It's a very long way. So they probably used, a season to get there. But, they went for years, quite a lot of Vikings went to Istanbul to work as lifeguards and soldiers. So they spent maybe 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 years there and went back afterwards. For us, it's a 16 week. Now it's not actually, to be honest, 14-week travel.
Yeah.
And then we have an extra 2 weeks to sail around in Istanbul and the Bosporus just for fun. But the voyage itself from Tønsberg to get to Istanbul is 14 weeks. And it's because we have set it up with stages of 2 weeks. So the same crew will sail the ship for 2 weeks at a time.
Okay.
And then they will be replaced with the new crew, or some will continue for several stages, of course, but mainly people will swap after 2 weeks at some main city somewhere on the route. And then we start all over again.
What would be the reason for having that swap? Is it just because the volunteers and they can't be there the whole time?
We're dealing with us modern people, with a schedule and children and all sorts of things and stuff we have to do, and work, God forbid it, we have to do that as well. So it's very hard to find people who will be on a Viking ship for 14 weeks straight. But doing this in 2 week stages, people can say, okay, I have 4 weeks vacation this summer, I'll do 2 weeks on a Viking ship or 2 weeks in, Spain or whatever people do. And it tend to work because we are modern people. We tend to, cherry picking, I will have a little of that, and a little of that, and a little of that. So only the really, people who want to experience a really extended travel would do like 14 weeks in a row. We don't have that. We have one who's doing 4 or 5 stages in a row, more or less. That's pretty much it is, absolutely. And we have a few. I'm doing 3 stages, but not in a row, but part, with a little lag between. So that's how we do it, and it's all about modern people. It's actually one of our biggest problems on this voyage, dealing with modern people, because modern people tend to decide themselves what to do, when to do it, how to do it. They're not. We are not, used to get told how to do stuff, especially not in our holiday.
Okay.
Right? But on a ship, you need actually to do stuff in a certain order, and you are actually traveling with other people in a confined space. So you need to be a little tidy with your stuff. You
have to be able to get on.
Yeah, so you need to get, you don't know all the people you're traveling with, so you need to be a little, social and adaptable. And modern people, they can do that for a certain time. But I think we can say for certain that after a few weeks, you get a little tired of all these people around you and want to do your own stuff your own way again.
Okay. Norwegians aren't known for being the most social of people. So how do you guys manage to do 2 weeks with random people on a boat?
You have to ask Dan Cato, because I'm actually Danish. So.
Oh, okay. That maybe that makes more sense.
Yeah, I can try to answer that one. Yeah, actually, the training and the courses and this preparation part of the ship is important, because when we are working together, putting tar on the side of the ship, carrying stones for the ballast, and all these things, we get time to get to know each other a little bit, at least.
Yeah.
So it's important because, as you insinuate here, the Norwegians, it's normally in wintertime, we crawl back into our houses, sitting in front of the TV or the fireplace, doing whatever we like, and not very much meeting each other and speaking together.
Mm-hmm.
So we are starting the preparation of the ship already in start of February. And little by little, the people are getting out of the dark holes in their homes, and the spring sun is warming us a little bit, and slowly we're getting a little bit more in mode to be social. And finally, when we departure, then we are actually in mode for being social, at least for a week.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
that was a part that I hadn't even thought about. I was so busy thinking about the journey and how hard it must be on the body, just undertaking 2 weeks of, I imagine it's quite hard labor, but just having to put up with other people in such a confined space must be difficult. And I can imagine I could do it with my closest friends, because we've been friends all our lives, and it's to the point where if one of us has been an idiot, we can say to each other, "Stop being a dick. You need to sort it out." But if it's a random person and they're maybe just not doing too well under the pressure of the situation, I imagine it can get quite tricky.
I think Dan Cato is, stated exactly the means how to fix this. We need to get to know each other before we leave. So working together and do stuff together and be social together is at least making each and every one of us aware of each another's difficulties, or stuff like that. But of course, stuff happens. So we try to avoid, getting into conflicts by having rules defined on board. Who is responsible for what? Mm-hmm. Who can make decision on what part? And then we have one very important thing. We have a meeting on board after every day or every major thing has happened.
Okay.
And it's actually dated back to the Viking Age. It's called in Norwegian masteting, and it's a meeting around the mast, translated directly, and it's actually a gathering where the entire crew meets and sit down for how long it takes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, whatever, going through what happened, what have we done, what worked, what didn't work, and how can we fix it next time so we don't have to discuss it once again. And having a routine doing that every day after every stretch we had done, sailing, whatever we had done, we get this routine to try to solve stuff at masteting.
And it stops things building up as well, I guess. Because that's sometimes the worst part, is where, especially when you're isolated and you sit and get it in your mind and you start to conflate, and it gets worse and bigger and bigger and bigger. And then in an hour's time or 2 hours, when you can speak to them, you're like ready to blow.
And, it's very important, because when you're sailing and all the forces are working on the ship, and, it might be bad weather and you need to do stuff, it's not the time for discussing stuff. You just need to do what you're told. But at the masteting, right after, you can say, what did you tell me? I don't like how you told me to do stuff, or, But in the action, you just have to comply with the orders and do it, because it could be dangerous otherwise.
Yeah.
But you have a vent to use afterwards to say, okay, I didn't like what you said to me, and we need to find out how to do it next time. It works really good. So that's one way to deal with it. And the other thing is that we have this clear responsibilities. So we have a chef on board responsible for food. You know, we have the captain, of course, responsible for when we're sailing. We have a stage responsible for, you know, all the logistics part. You know, we need, where do we stop to get food? Where are we stopping to meet people we have arranged to meet? You know, all that sort of things. And we've got a media responsible who's making sure that media will get what they need. And if the phone call from a local newspaper or somebody, that guy will take that phone call and tell the story. So we try to, you know, give roles to people so they have a clear responsibility for that stage that they have to fix. And thereby we also know who's making the decisions. So we don't have to discuss that. It sounds ideal. It doesn't work like that necessarily all the time, but you know, we have to try. Yeah.
And that's one of the challenges as well when we are putting together the cruise, because we made it like you can apply for a spot on the different stages, and you can have your first priority, second priority, etc. And then I had to make the mosaic together to make a able crew on each stage. And actually,
that's tough.
Yeah, and actually we have had now 4 seasons sailing, and we sailed a little longer each year. And last year we sailed 8 weeks, and all the experience we got now, for example, regarding psychological things, a few people can't be on board on the same ship on the same time.
I was just about to ask that. Do you get anybody who comes to you in private and says, look, Dad, do not put me with fucking him. Whatever you do, we are not on the same leg.
Yeah, but you know, that's standard, isn't it? We can't be loved by everybody. We can't love everyone. So there will always be people. When you are in our boat guild, we're about 100 members, I guess, more or less.
That's a lot of people, yeah.
Yeah, you know, you can't go along with everybody the same way. So I think it's actually okay that Cato get information, trying to make this possible with the crew, and he get information and say, please don't put me on the same crew as this guy or this lady, because it won't work. I think it's good, because that avoids a lot of issues.
Better to know now than when you're stuck on a ship.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's the important part also for security, because Lars mentioned a few roles, but also we have a rule that says we need one person that has participated in a security training that includes testing rescue gear in swimming pool actually, testing how everything works. And we need to have 4 people that has passed this training on board at any time, because we have 4 of these rescue rafts on board, and also medics and other sort of safety.
A lot of skills goes into this. So, but you know, as Cato mentioned earlier, we have to apply to quite a lot of rules, because in a modern world you cannot just build a ship and sail it wherever you want. There's rules to apply to, and it goes for the captain's certificates, of course, and the ship itself, but also safety gear on board and the training of the people. So it's quite intensive these days to get all this into balance and apply to all these rules. This morning we went to the boatyard to get a statement from a classification company like the Veritas to say that the hull looks fine, because somebody has asked us to prove that this ship is the hull is not rotten, or the nails are not rusty or whatever. So we need to get a Veritas guy, you know, down to look at the hull and make a statement and some paperwork, and you know, and you have to do all sorts of things today. You didn't do that in the Viking Age, I'm quite sure. Nobody asked any question. It was much easier at that time, because you know, those guys building the ship, they were sailing the ship. And those guys building bad ships, they never came back. So they could not build another bad ship. They could only build good ships.
Well, yeah, that's a good point. And I guess if you're sailing it yourself, you want to make sure it's right.
Mm.
You don't want a dodgy ship, I guess.
No, absolutely not. And the ship itself is, even though it's a reconstruction of a found back from, it was dug out in the 60s. It's a shipwreck actually that went down in a storm on the coast of Norway, and only half the ship, or only half of the mid section of the ship is preserved on a museum in our city.
Mm-hmm.
And then we try to reconstruct it, but still, we need to make sure that it's built in such a way that it can be used these times, but we also need to fill it with modern technology because we have to apply to all these rules.
Yeah.
And we have all sorts of technology on board. You can't see it though, because we try to hide it out, but there's a lot.
Yeah, Bob, you mentioned earlier regarding engines. I'm not sure if you are interested in all the technology on board, but if there's time, we could explain how we have engines.
Yeah, definitely. Or I wasn't expecting there to be an engine on it.
No, it comes down to the fact that when we started to plan the first time to go via Russia to the Black Sea, quite early we got the information that you're not allowed to go into the rivers of Russia without having your own engine. It's not allowed to row and do stuff like that. You need to have an engine.
Okay.
Modern rule. And at that time we said, okay, if we're going to travel this ship, we need to have an engine. We don't want a good old-fashioned diesel engine hammering on the deck. One propeller, it's all shaking like that.
Yeah.
Of course, we want the modern version, and that would be electrical, of course.
Okay.
And we say, okay, who delivers electrical engines for Viking ships? There's not many suppliers these days, I can tell you.
No. Did you have to make your own?
Yeah, more or less. What happened is that by coincidence, there was a few guys passing the boatyard in a cabin cruiser with an electric engine connected to the stern system, and we stopped them and say, "Hey, what are you doing? Why don't you use modern time? We try to make a solution where you can replace diesel and petrol engines with the electrical engines and battery bank, and to make a better environment for boating." And we said, okay, if you can do that, could you figure out how to make a solution for our Viking ship here? Because we have some thoughts about that. And we sat down in a meeting, and I was in that meeting many years ago now, and we drew on the whiteboard, say we have the Viking ship, we would like to have 4 torpedoes under the ship that can rotate with a propeller on the end. It can rotate.
Okay.
And it can make the ship go, it could turn, and you can do all things.
It could turn in a very small space then.
Yeah. So they said, oh, what you want is azimuth engines. Oh yeah, there's a professional word for it. It's azimuth. Okay. Yes. Does it exist? They say no, nobody makes that. You have azimuth for very big supply boats in the North Sea, where the azimuth is driven by hydraulics and it's very, very, very big. But these small ones now doesn't exist. But they were quite keen, and they said, we can make an arrangement because we are an innovation company, and we can make a deal with you that we will do the innovation. You will pay only for the parts, the physical parts we're using, not the time.
Oh, wow.
And you will be our test ship. And that's a deal where we're still on today. So we are the test ship for a company that's now called Sea Drive, that has developed from our thoughts these azimuth pots with electrical engines and foldable propellers. So when we're not using them, it's just folding in and not making any drag in the water. And it's all 4 of those pots. They are joystick controlled by one single joystick. So when the captain wants to do stuff, he has a very, very small joystick that's 10 centimeters high, It's of course covered in a wooden box, so nobody can see it. You just have to open a little lid, and you put your hand in, and you control the entire ship with these 4 engines under the ship, based on electrical battery bank of 3 tons in the middle of the ship, and all developed for our ship. And we, of course, were the first one to try it out. It was quite audacious the first years, because the first season we didn't have any control. We did all the stuff manually, and people was controlling the parts inside the ship with a stick manually.
Okay,
but we didn't have the software at the time. And then the software came, and we have a lot of trouble. We burn stuff, and developing stuff takes time. For the last 2 years, we got quite a stable solution, and the company Sea Drive has now started production and are delivering these solutions all over Europe.
Wow, that's all because you stopped them going past.
Yeah, and the solution they were actually started to build when we met them back in the years. They dropped it all. They said, your idea is much better. So we dropped all the old ideas, and we'll do your idea for full. And that company is now, I think there's 7 or 8 employees, and they're expanding now and selling it all over Europe. So that's perfect.
What a nice story.
Yeah,
and it's quite interesting this last summer when we arrived in a marina in Norway, Denmark, or Sweden. And so very often the marinas is made for 10, maximum 15 meters long leisure ships. And we came there with 20 meters long wooden Viking ship, 30 meter high mast, and they took up their mobile phones, preparing to film a crash into the dock. And we adjusted the engines into docking mode, and with the hidden joystick, we just parked sideways, backwards, turned around.
I bet they were all their jaws dropped. Because on the surface, they wouldn't. I imagine with them being electric as well, they're extremely quiet. So no one would know that you have this secret technology.
If you're 20 meters away, you won't hear the engines, because it's just this, from electrical cars, you have this sound. So we can't hear that 20 meters away. Of course, you can see waters moving alongside the ship if you're looking carefully. But in a busy harbor, you don't understand what's going on. So it's quite often that people are coming from, restaurants and bars, sitting and watched what happened, wandering back to us and say, what kind of solution do you have on board your ship? Because that's not standard. And it isn't. We used to say that we are the most modern Viking ship in the world, and we probably are. Absolutely. And probably we're the most modern leisure ship in the world as well, due to the solution we are using. So it's pretty cool. Absolutely.
That is.
So that's one of the things that we have underneath the deck. Of course, we also have all the electricity to do charging. We need to be able to charge from shorelines, but also we have generators on board if we are in a remote place without infrastructure close to harbor. We can produce our electricity ourselves. And then, of course, we have all this safety gear hidden under the deck, and we have all the navigation gear, all the warning gear telling people that we're coming, or if we are crashing, we have all the gear to tell the whole world that the ship went down, so they can come and find us. So all the modern stuff, you'll find a modern boat we also have, but you won't see it because you will see the antennas for the radios, of course, but otherwise you won't see it. And we think that's pretty cool, because we appear to be a Viking ship, but we are safe as a modern ship, and that's okay. Actually.
Yeah, you have to be safe. It's paramount as well.
It's actually dangerous enough to do sailing with this ship, because as Cato said, it is a square rigged sail, and handling it takes a lot of manpower to do, and the technology is more than 1,000 years old. It's not flawless. You can, if you don't do it correctly, you can capsize your boat easily. So you need to know what you're doing. I think that's enough risk for us to handle. So it's nice to have all the technology to make sure that the rest is at least safe. So,
Yeah.
and I think that's the thrill of sailing Viking ships. The thrill you get when you manage to sail the ship with the people on board, make them that they do what they're supposed to do, and the ship and the sail and everything works together, and you're pushing ahead with 10 knots, and really it's really nice experience.
Yeah.
It's not just you could a modern Bermuda rigged sailboat, you just hoist the sail and you can go along more or less alone because everything is done by one person. On a Viking ship you need to be at least, on our ship, 8 very skilled people, preferably 10 or 12 people on board.
Mm-hmm.
And so not to mention the physical strength to pull the ropes.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I bet.
Yeah, we actually recommend people to be at least strong in their arms and a little heavy.
Hey?
Yeah, you fit perfectly.
I could be perfect.
Yeah, you fit perfectly.
A little bit of training.
Yeah, the thing is that we have a winch on the aft deck, and the winch is what hoisting the boom and the sail, and it's pretty hard work. And the winch is manual, so you pull down on a very big long stick, 2 persons exchanges to pull the stick and pull it out. It's a very, very sophisticated technique. But the main thing is that you have to be heavy to be able to pull it down. So what we prefer is little heavy people with strong arms. That's really perfect fit for a Viking ship.
Oh, so. See you next year then.
Yeah. You can pull some sails. Next year when it's going to be pretty cool because we're going to through Greece next year. And people are traveling to Greece to sail around in leisure boats, from island to island, but not many can do that in a Viking ship.
Absolutely
not. We'll do that next year. It's going to be pretty cool. That's for sure. Yeah. And up the coast of Italy, and going to Nice and Monaco and all those fancy places in a Viking ship. It's going to be pretty cool.
Yeah, just to sign on and we will start the training.
Yeah. You tell me where to sign on, and then I will. I'll definitely do it.
We are launching website the day we're leaving on the 29th of April this year. We are leaving for Istanbul, and we are launching a website the same date, so people can follow our voyage live on the website.
Wonderful.
So, and it's easy because it's sagafarman.com.
Mm-hmm.
So it's straightforward. And we'll launch it and you can follow. There'll be videos and AIS position you can follow where the ship is, and all sorts of things. And on that same side, you can also, apply for a spot for the 2024 if you want to.
I am going to.
Yeah,
I'm going to. And hopefully you'll get a lot of publicity from it. We'll share it, and I'll share it on my own platforms because it's a wonderful thing. And Dan, before we wrap up, and hopefully have you both got time to do a little Q&A with the patrons after?
No problem.
Yeah, okay, so we'll wrap up in a minute. But Dan, obviously finance has to be a very difficult thing for this. Can people listening to this, is there somewhere they can donate or help out if they can?
I wish we had, but No, we don't. We're not that professional on collecting money like that. We have been working with sponsors, and we try to get some sponsors to help us either with cash money or with equipment and gear that we need on the trip.
Mm-hmm.
And we actually got Life West from Viking Safety Gear in Denmark as an example, because they see, okay, you need this gear. We don't have the cash, but we'd like to let you use our gear, and we need it. We need safety gear. So it's a pretty good match for a sponsor.
Mm-hmm.
So we have been working with sponsors to get the cash and the gear, and we are more or less fully financed. We are not nervous about leaving, financially spoken, but we have actually, on your question, where can I donate? We have planned to have a small fraction of our internet solution making people that can donate a beer for a Viking. So we'll see I hope that we'll get that up and running when we leave, 29th of April, and then maybe people can spend a little to give us something cool to drink on the road or on the voyage down to Istanbul. It will be pretty hot on the trip, that's for sure.
I mean, I could sponsor you with mead. That I own a company that sells mead.
Yeah, but everything helps. Absolutely.
I don't know if having an alcohol sponsor on a well, I mean, it is a voyage of a Viking ship, so I feel like it's quite fitting.
Yeah, we don't think it's an issue. We're trying to handle everything modesty, of course.
Mm-hmm.
But a cold beer in the hot summer day after a day's hard work, nothing's better, isn't it?
No, absolutely not.
Yes, it's a combination of a welfare issue and a safety issue.
Yeah.
So when we are moving, there is non-alcohol allowed at all. Yeah. But in the evening, of course, in the hot weather, and you get thirsty when you're on the sea.
And also, we're trying to. We are on a holiday, right? Each and every one of us is on our summer holiday, and we expect all to nice food, a nice drink, nice company, right? That's a good holiday. So we try to provide that when we get to harbor every night after experiences we got during the day. We try to make nice food, have a nice evening together, and of course have a drink if we like to. So it's a part of being a volunteer, trying to get this ship all the way down to Istanbul in a nice and timely manner.
Okay,
I think it's absolutely appropriate. No,
I will definitely send you a message after this and see if there's anything I can help you out with.
Yeah, but you're absolutely welcome. And anybody else who thinks they have something to help us with, absolutely welcome to make contact. That's for sure.
And of course, if anyone want to fund us with some money, there is always the international money transfer through SWIFT. So it's possible, but we don't have any SWIFT easy solution by now. But it will come.
Yeah, but your audience, I think your audience, all of you listening now, I think that most of you are probably potential crew members for the 2024 stage in the Mediterranean. Yeah. Because listening to this podcast, you are interested in the Vikings and what they're doing, and doing it yourself is probably the highlight of being interested in Viking stuff. So any one of you wants to participate, it's just sign up. We are on our website, sagerfarmer.com, from the 29th of April. And next year will be amazing as well. And the year after that, and the year after that. We won't get back to Norway until we are tired. We just sail around and have a nice time.
Yeah.
Every season. Lars,
stop giving my spot away. The more people apply, the less chance I've got of getting a spot. So we'll put the link to the website in the show notes. So anybody who listens to this, just look in the show notes, you can find it. And if you think you can, definitely apply. Do you have any restrictions on where people have to be from geographically, or do they just have to get there?
No. The restriction is pretty simple. You have to be a part of our guild. It's very expensive. It costs about 30 euros a year to be a part of the guild. So
yeah,
and you have to be an active member. So somehow you need to be a part of the guild, being active during the season and during your off season as well, in any way you can. But we are an international guild. We have people from all over Europe and USA and down under, and and people are participating as they can. So when we are planning now the 2024 stage, you don't have to be in Norway to be a part of that planning group. You can sit wherever you want to in the world and be online, participating, planning, and be active. And that's the criteria.
Okay.
Be a member and be active. And then, of course, when we close up to departure for 2024, we need to meet up to do some training and preparing each other and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. It's a part of the game.
Like an example, now we are getting close to Easter, And during Easter, we will have people from Shetland, from Sweden, from Denmark visiting us to get acquainted with the rest of the crew.
Mm-hmm. Wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah, I look forward to joining, playing, and people listening. If you can, even if you just join the guild to support what you know what they're doing, then that's one way that you can help out. And if you do think that it's something you'd be interested in actually going along, then yeah, join and put your name down. Who knows? In 2024, we could all be on a Viking ship together going around Greece.
That would be cool. Absolutely.
It would. Yeah, absolutely. But what about dogs? Can we have passengers? Because I have a little dog here who would definitely love to come.
You know, we haven't actually discussed it specific, but actually back in the days when we started to sail with the Oseberg ship, we did used to have a ship's dog on board.
Okay.
Called Jakob, I think. Yeah, if I remember correctly.
Mm-hmm.
But we haven't done that since, I think, and unfortunately, due to the fact that we are all on holiday on a very confined space,
Yeah, of course,
it might be a little tricky to have, pets on board.
He can have a dog sitter.
Yeah,
It'll be my holiday from him. Wonderful. Let's do a Q&A with the patrons. I'm sure they have a bunch of questions they want to ask you. If you do want to listen to the Q&A, they all go up on our Patreon. There's a whole back catalog with each guest. We do 20-minute, half-an-hour Q&A. You can listen to it after the fact, or you can submit questions beforehand or join in and watch the episode live and ask your questions in there. Lars, Dan, thank you very much. I think it's an amazing thing that you're doing, and obviously, I guess, not just thank you to both of you, to the whole guild for doing what you're doing, because I love projects like this, and the fact that there are people out there that are doing these awesome things and carrying tradition on. It's an amazing thing to see.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for letting us participate in your podcast.
Oh, you're welcome. Where can people? Do you have an Instagram page, anything like that, where people can follow it other than just the website?
We are not, as I said, we're not that public. So I think the best thing to do is, wait for the 28th of April to get on sagafarma.com and to follow us and to join us if you want to. There are some links to the foundation where you can follow all the things we're doing in the foundation or the other ships that we are building and sailing and stuff like that. And maybe you can put that in the comments afterwards.
Absolutely,
yeah.
I think that would be. You have to get a social media. If you don't have an Instagram or a Facebook page, you need to get one started before you go. And because you've got so many people on board, you're all going to have your phones and be able to take photos of things, and you could really kind of document it through that. I'm sure people would be fascinated to watch it. And
we are going to do that. And as I said, we do have media responsibles on board on each stage, and we have this website to publish everything that goes on. We can have video blogs and live streaming and all sorts of things when traveling. Also, there will be a documentary made as we go along down to Istanbul. That will be sent via the streaming channels, like Viasat or whatever, when some time after we come back. So there will be a lot of documentation, a lot of media when we get going. But for the time being, we are more focused on, prepping the ship and prepping the crew and get all the, rules and regulations sorted out. And then we'll do media stuff when we are moving. So you have to be patient for another month, and then we will be there. And you can probably search for Saga Farman on the internet, and you will find news about us when we start to move, because television and newspaper stuff will follow us. That's for sure.
Amazing! I can't wait to see it. Let's, like I said, let's wrap this up. If anybody wants to follow me personally, it's Daniel_Farrand1, or just Horns of Odin on Instagram or Facebook. And yeah, I think that's it. I'm looking forward to seeing it, and I wish you both the absolute best and safest travel possible. And I look forward to seeing you get there safely. And I guess maybe you can both come back in 16 weeks' time when it's all done and dusted, and we can talk about how the journey was, who hated who, if the first aid bag went missing at any point.
I think you should just call us in late August.
Yeah.
And we'll make an arrangement to join your podcast again, and we'll tell you all about what happened and how it went, and what we have learned for next season.
Yeah, I look forward to it.
Absolutely.
Wonderful. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Absolutely welcome.
Welcome. Yeah, thank you.